Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning to all of you. So we are going to start dengan our first chapter, which is Introduction to PR. This is the first chapter for public relation, and of course you have to know a little bit background of PR. So kalau korang Google pun kan, there are various definitions of PR. But again, in recent years, some have defined PR as reputation management, perception management, or perhaps image management. Because again, when we talk about public relation, is how you build connection. That is the basic understanding of what PR. But what is actually PR? It is divided into five. It is socially responsible, there is management function, it involves two way of communication, it is a planned activity, and last kali, it is a research-based social science. So let's go one by one. So it is a management function. The relationship between organization and public should be the main priority. Because you see kan, when we talk about public relation, it's not just about building relationship internally, tapi it's more towards building relationship between internal and external. The success of the organization depends on how well relationship is built between organization and public, dengan orang dalam, dengan orang luar. It cannot be within internally, but dengan orang luar sekali. And it involves two way of communication. Communication is not about telling people about organization need. It involves listening to those same people speak of their concern. Meaning to say that we are not just about kita beritahu orang, okay, what is our business is all about. It is all about we listen to the customer, what are their needs and what are their wants. Alright, the willingness to listen is the essential part of relationship building process. So sometimes kan, it's good for us to listen to our customer because they might be giving us insight that kita tak terfikir pun. So it's very important for us to listen. It is a planned activity. Action taken by organization must be carefully planned and in line with organization values and goals. Again, as much as we want to listen to the public, again, wherever we do an activity, for example, it has to be jive with our value and goal. So since relationship with public, the action must also be consistent with public's values and goal. It ties back to the two way of communication. We cannot be selfish here. Whenever we want to do an activity, for example, you have to think about your value and also at the same time, kita punya customer punya value. Lepas tu, we have research-based social science. Formal and informal research is conducted to allow an organization to communicate effectively, possessing a full understanding of the environment in which it operates. Again, right, in order for you to communicate or to convey information from your organization to public, you have to conduct a research. Why research? Is because whenever you convey to the public, it shows that you have carefully conducted a research. Maknanya bukan tin kosong. Alright? It's socially responsible. A practitioner's responsibility extend beyond organization. They are not just working for the company. Again, you guys are playing the role in society. Because again, it ties back to our definition. It's about building relationship between an organization and the public. Then kita ada organization roles and functions. So the result of PR efforts must be the real behavior of the organization and perception of that behavior by its public. So we have 4 principles of public relation. Okay, next, again, this is the explanation for the principles of PR. The first one is that PR is public, not personal service. As I mentioned to you before, this is not you working within your organization, you are serving people. So PR is service-oriented occupation in which public interest should be the primary consideration, not your personal reward. You are working for people, not for your own goal. Should never lie to the news or media. Again, as a PR practitioner, you are reaching people with the means of media, news, radio. And you have to make sure that you maintain your integrity. Do not convey false information. The original ombudsman and ombudswoman, do you know that? Ombudsman is actually a people appointed by organization yang untuk mengkaji to investigate all the complaints, right? PR practitioners are in the middle between an organization and its public. They must be an effective communicator in which you have to convey information back and forth until both parties reach mutual understanding. It's like orang tengah-tengah di mana you have to convey the information to the public. At the same time, you have to convey the information from the public to your organization. Requires multidisciplinary application. PR practitioners must adapt the work of others as they are representing the companies to the public. What I'm trying to say here is that it's very simple. You are not working in one department, for example, communication. Perhaps you are conveying information from the human resources department to the public, or you are conveying information from the finance department to the public. So basically, you have to have the glimpse of the jobs from other departments as well. Okay, then we have specific areas of PR specialization. The breadth of PR services allows individuals a variety of career choices. PR practitioners are experienced more than one area. So we have four specific areas in which we have non-profit organization. All right, so non-profit organization offers several advantages and opportunities even when the compensation is often less than in other areas. Again, it is a common, I would say common sense lah, but if let's say you're working dalam NPO ataupun NGO, you will get less, but again, you will get the joy or the fulfillment, working and helping other people. So PR practitioner usually involved in promotional activities and also fundraising. So basically, when you work for this NGO, you are doing a campaign in order for you to get more money. The structure of NPO allows the PR practitioner to have the freedom in designing a program because again, you are working in a small number of production staff, this NPO. Unless kalau korang kerja yang besar-besar like Magna or United Nations, so it's a different story. Then we have educational institution. It is linked to NPO, but they may be either private or public. The type of PR practice in state educational institution is often suited to a person who loves to deal with the government. Again, when we talk about educational institutions, we have private punya in which is not linked to the government, and the government in which it is directly linked to the government. So when you are working in an educational institution which is linked to the government, you are licensing yourself with them a lot because again it has to abide to the rules and regulations stated by the government. Research trend analysis is where some PR practitioners specialize in research that focuses on capturing information to help the organization to achieve sustainable competitive advantage, in short SCA, analyzing customer trend. So basically, again, when you involve yourself in PR, you are not just conveying information to the public. In order for you to convey a concrete information, you have to make sure that you do your thorough research. So when you do your thorough research, such as analyzing customer trend, you will be able to bring that research to the company, discuss, analyze, and the results of your research could be conveyed back to the public for them to know. And last but not least, we have financial PR or investor relation. This area includes such activities such as preparing for example, macam kita kata annual report that is can be accepted by the auditors or stakeholders, and also responsible in issuing a news or announcement that would affect the reputation of the organization. Okay, then we have public relations as a process. PR is a process that is a series of actions, changes, or functions that bring about a result. One popular way to remember its component is to use RACE acronym, first articulated by John Marston. So John Marston ni dia started the PR as a process in which dia pakai 4 je dulu. Dia pakai research, action, program planning, communication, evaluation. So research is where what is the problem or situation. Okay. Action, program planning is where what is going to be done about it. So once you have identified the problem, so what is your next step? That is what we call action. Communication is how will the public be told. So again, once you have considered about few actions, so how are you supposed to tell the public? And last but not least is what we call evaluation. Was the audience reached and what was the effect? So again, you evaluate back. So once you have told the public, so what's next? Is there any room for improvement? So this is the four so-called the processes stated by John Marston. But again, as we grow to the era of digitalization, so it changes a bit in which we have 6 processes. We start with research and analysis, policy information, programming, communication, feedback, program assessment and adjustment. In which research analysis where consists of inputs that determine the nature and the extent of the PR problem and opportunity. Again, sama juga macam yang definition awal tadi where you have to identify the problem. How do you identify the problem? Is by getting the feedback from public or perhaps a media reporting. Newspaper kadang-kadang kan, newspaper tu keluar macam, okay, negara sedang dilanda masalah ekonomi. So you gather that kind of information, your problem. You do some research about it. Then we have policy formulation in which the PR personnel will make recommendations on policy, what actions are to be taken by the organization. So you formulate your strategy. All right, you formulate your recommendations. This is something that you have in mind first. So once the policy or action is agreed on, this is the third process here. PR personnel will begin to plan a communication program that will further the organization's objective. They will set the standard, define the audiences, and decide on the strategy. So once you have the policy in your mind, you start to put everything on the paper. Okay, these are the things that we are going to do to the public. All right, you start to program about it. Then we have communication. PR personnel will execute the program through media releases, special events, and perhaps speeches. So this is where you gather everything and you make your plan into a reality. Right? Then we have feedback. So these actions are measured by feedback from the same component that made up the first step. Did the media mention the key messages? Did the people change their attitude? So once you have conducted your strategy, or once you have implemented your strategy, you have to evaluate whether how good it is. So in order for you to evaluate, you have to ask the feedback. All right. And last but not least is what we call assessment. Assessment is the cycle is done repeated. Again, it is I'll say a process where it will repeat for so many times. So in order for you to repeat the processes again, you have to make sure that the feedback that you have gathered earlier is being rectified. For example, one of the feedbacks that you got, they kata, oh, the communication isn't that clear. So from the assessment itself, you are going to rectify that, in the next cycle, I'm going to make sure that the news is clear by using a specific language or by using a easier language for people to understand. All right, and that's it for your chapter 1. Thank you so much.